My father, he was a plant operator for over 50 years in London, in and around. Well, he actually worked all around the country, but yeah, he was a plant operator. So my first introduction was, I suppose, really when I was a lad. Used to, on a Saturday morning, at a time when you were allowed to, I used to go with him to site, see the machines working. He was a groundworks plant operator, so I suppose that's where I first got interested in it. When I was travelling with my father. When you're a young lad and you're seeing these big machines working, it really does kind of pique your interest, So that was sort of, you still carry that with you, even when you get a bit older. So it's all linked, demo groundworks. It's certainly these days. It's when I joined McAlpines when I left school, and I was working as a quantity surveyor, and that kind of gave me an insight into the whole process. Really, I had an opportunity to work on a couple of jobs in town. One was Lloyd's Register of Shipping on Fenchurch Street, and one was the civils work for the Millennium Bridge across the Thames back in the late 90s. And from that perspective, I got to see kind of a broad range from start to finish, from demolition through the ground, through the basement, up the frame, and even to the fit outs and finishes on the first job, and then the second job more civils orientated. And I was very much interested in the early stuff, the demolition, and the groundworks. We're always improving as an industry. Even from when I first started, we're always looking to ways. We're always pushing it to see what else we can do that's better. We're doing this. What else can we do? So it is a challenge. It's all moving in the right direction. So yes, I enjoy a challenge. That's the thing. And city centre work is, if that's your background, you enjoy the technical side of it. You enjoy finding ways to do things. Finding ways around problems. So yeah, I think it's good. That you have these big projects. Like HS2, etc. that push the boundaries. They say we can do better. We can do this. This is what we're expecting. And as an industry, then we evolve. So I think it's, you have to accept the challenge. We've managed to be a part of the HS2 framework now. We're starting to look at some jobs like that, which is a brilliant opportunity. Previously, before my involvement, Clifford Devlin were involved in the Olympics. So it's that, you get access to information that ordinarily you probably wouldn't, consider. And everyone's on a level playing field. The expectation is that you have to do this and that, and you improve. You learn, you evolve, you improve, and it's all part of a longer legacy. But everything needs to be planned. That's you can't do anything ad hoc. So everything needs to be planned. You get the opportunity to look at a job. Every job you have to take on its merits. Every job's different. I've done a good few jobs now in London, and no two of them are identical. And it's looking at how you can do the job. So I suppose it's just planning, getting things from, involvement with the local authorities, involvement with the stats, involvement with neighbours, and then moving on, how are you going to do the job? Does it require a tower crane? Have you got access onto the job? Have you got space to load tippers? Can you load inside the job? Can you encapsulate it? What's your sequence? What's following on? Who's coming in after you? If you've got a facade retention or a tower, and you need to support a building, is that tower going to be in the way of the core for the new building? So it's any manner of things. It's having an understanding of kind of all stages, all phases, and having sufficient time to plan and engage with all the parties. Biggest change, probably the use of technology, I would say. When I first started as a quantity surveyor, one of my jobs was filing, and there was a lot of filing. It was all paperwork. And when we used to put tenders going out for packages, it would literally, you'd fill a table with drawings and scope of works and bills of quantities, and then you'd have to take these big envelopes down to the post office, send them off to the contractors. Now, everything's digital, everything's online, everything's electronic. So it's harnessing that technology and having access to information. That's probably one of the big benefits. I suppose sometimes we find that whereas before you'd get everything, in relation to what you were doing, what you were looking at, now you just get everything. So sometimes it's trying to get the information that's specific to you that you need, whereas there's a tendency just to give you everything. So that's one of the challenges, but yeah, that's changed an awful lot. And I suppose the other side of it is environmental monitoring and things like that, obviously, which is key to what we do in town. we're able to measure our impacts now in real time. We've got technology that we use that is actually predictive as well. So we know what our noise levels are. If we carry on, are we going to breach the levels that we've agreed? Previously, it was very much more reactive when I first started. Even when we started introducing the technology, we'd have noise monitors or dust monitors. But dust monitoring, for instance, involved us having someone in the middle of a site, like a tripod in the middle of the site, and once a week the technician would come, he'd wash through the water, he'd collect the sample, go off to his lab, a couple of days later he'd tell you how much dust you'd created in the previous week. Now we can do it, and we know exactly what we're doing. It's live, it's real time. So that's probably two of the main differences I've noticed in the time I've been involved. There is certainly a tendency, I suppose, as an industry to maintain the status quo, do things as you were doing. But as I said, there are certain projects, and as you say, certain contractors like Clifford Devlin who like to challenge that, and find better ways of doing things, and that's what we're always seeking to do. And I think things move on. As you say, perhaps different contractors move on at a different pace. But if you compare where we were when I first started and how we're doing things now, I think as a whole, things have certainly improved, and there's a lot more to do. There are a lot more improvements to make, but I think everything is moving in the right direction. We had brilliant machine drivers, but they'd almost want to sit on top of the block, just to get the perspective. Because even if you're at a slightly different angle, it was I suppose strange. But things have moved on now. Operators, they like to see what they're doing. They like to be in control, and you have to be certainly within a certain distance. I suppose. But it's the benefit is that you can obviously operate it at a safe distance remotely, and that's one of the big plus sides of using Brogs. Safety, certainly, because as I said, operator keeping them remote from the workface, brilliant, but also the fact that the way they're designed is that they're the greater power to weight ratio. So for the equivalent weight of a standard mini excavator, you can have a much bigger attachment on a machine that can travel through a doorway or track up the stairs. So it's that's the other advantage. It's just the power to weight ratio. The flip side of Brox is they're not a quid pro quo replacement for an excavator. You bring an excavator on job, what he can do, it can break and it can pulverise and it can do those things. But also, when it's not doing that, it can process, it can load, and Brox just simply aren't there. They can't do that. So we tend to look at it on its merits. And on this job, as you see, it's ideal for Brock work, and we're clearing it. So it's everything on its merits. We look at it individually. The reason I decided to join Clifford Devlin as a company, and in all the time I've been involved in the industry, Clifford Devlin have got a brilliant reputation in the industry. They always have. I mean, as a company, they've been in business for over 50 years, so you don't have that longevity without being good at what you do. And my experience, as I said, is in city centre demolition, and that's aligned with exactly what Clifford Devlin do. So the reason I joined was because it's a brilliant company, professional company, who specialise in city centre demolition work, and as a role I had the opportunity to join as head of demolition. So for me, that's the kind of step up in seniority, a bit more autonomy to do things. So yeah, that's the reason. We look at jobs and we think how to do things, how to add benefits, how to do things differently. We look at things from a different perspective. We look at where the benefits are. We consider everything. We consider the neighbours, where we're operating. We consider temporary works. Is it the best scheme? We consider what's happening after us. So we look at everything, and then we go to the clients and say, this is how we see it. This is what we think we can do for you as a business. And we're located close to town. We've got a yard in Bow, so we're very much centralised and able to service sites within London. Yeah, we have a consultant that we use for temporary works. So we, as a team, sit down, look at a job, see what we think, and then engage the consultant, and then we'll design a facade retention scheme or a basement retention scheme. So yeah, we have the experience in house of collectively of doing sensitive demolition jobs. Every job is different. You'll have different facets, different elements of different things, but it's being able to deal with whatever you're given, and that's the thing for us. If it's a traditional demo job, big machines, brilliant. we can do that. If it's complex city centre, retained facades, listed buildings, we can do that. It's being able to deal with whatever you're given. As we're doing is to establish our presence in London and to do good quality work and do a professional job. And it's what Clifford's have been doing prior to me being involved, and I hope to continue that. You know, build on that. I think in terms of my experience, it's always been in London. There's always been work in London, so you know, I think that's probably, you know, where we see and the fact that we're based in London, that's where we see our future.